Okay. How do you know you're enhancing mindfulness and you're not hallucinating? Okay, how you really know is because you get more energy, you get more happiness, and also that better things happen to you in life. You become more sensitive to others. If you're hallucinating, you're not sensitive at all to what's happening. So hallucination, that sometimes means you're not responding appropriately to what's happening in life. You know that story about the man who was not hallucinating, he was very high, but high on alcohol? And that story about the police roadblock in Sydney? Do you remember that story? Actually, I told this, I think, a year ago in KL, and apparently that somebody told the radio, and it was on the radio show the next morning. It was a story. For those of you who haven't heard it, put your hand up if you haven't heard the story of the man. Okay, very good. I'll tell it to you then. But be careful, because this has consequences. If any of you are drinkers, this might actually motivate you to stop drinking in the future. Because this was a man in Sydney who'd been drinking alcohol one evening and was driving home. Now, in Sydney, as well as in Malaysia, there are laws which prohibit you drinking or sort of driving while you're drunk. This man had been drinking heavily. He was over the limit. The police were looking out for people like this. So they had a roadblock. They stopped all of the cars. He knew he was in trouble because there was no way out. If you try a U-turn, actually, I'm embarrassed to say that one of my disciples tried this one New Year's Eve. He did a U-turn, and straight away there was a police car in the bush waiting for him, and they nabbed him straight away. It's an admission of guilt. So there was no way out. He had to wait in the queue of cars to be tested. He knew he was done for. He'd been drinking so much, he was way over the limit. He'd be heavily fined and probably lose his license as well. He was resigned to his fate. When it got to his turn, he climbed out of his car, and the policeman gave him this little tube to blow into to check the alcohol level on his breath. He was about to blow into the tube when there was the sound of a car crash. Because the roadblock was a traffic hazard, there was a car which was going a little bit too fast, who couldn't brake quick enough to avoid colliding with one of the cars which was in front. The crash. He heard it, and so did the policeman about to test him. And the policeman said, "Sir, it's more important for me as a policeman to attend to the crash than to check your alcohol level. Get in your car and go home." He was so lucky. He came that close to being caught. But the problem wasn't over yet. Because the following morning, he woke up with a hangover at home when somebody was ringing his doorbell. He quickly got dressed. When he opened the door, he saw 2 New South Wales policemen waiting at the door. Straight away he was afraid, as you do when you see 2 policemen at your door. But then he thought, they can't arrest me now, I'm not driving. They can't prove anything. But the policeman didn't want to check his alcohol level. That all the 2 policemen asked was, "Sir, would you mind if we have a look in your garage?" He thought for a while. He said, "I'm not a burglar, I'm not a thief. There's nothing in my garage except my car." "Sure," he said. So he took them over to his garage and he opened the garage door. As soon as the door was opened, he almost died of a heart attack. Because when he looked inside his own garage, it wasn't his car in his garage. There was a police car in the garage instead. He was so drunk that when he got out of the car and they said, "Get in your car and drive home," by mistake he got into the wrong car. They had an extra car at the police roadblock and they were missing one of their own. They soon traced it and they went down to his house and he was in big trouble. That's what happens when you hallucinate or when you get drunk. You don't know what you're doing, and you make big mistakes. But you don't make those mistakes when you're mindful. And that's the difference. Okay. So hallucination, you make mistakes. Superpower mindfulness, you never make mistakes. Okay, another question? If there's no more questions, we're going to finish up for this evening. What time is it? It's only 9:30. Got a question? Yeah. Could you shout it out? Shout it out, because I can't hear you. Okay. You're asking about, according to Buddhism, the last thought is crucial to where you get reborn. What happens to those who get a sudden death, who don't have chance to get a nice last thought? Now, the first thing I say, that is actually true in one sense. Your last thought is the most important. But really, your last thought is a sum total of all you've ever thought before. All your kind deeds, all your good deeds means you'll have a nice thought at the end. So don't think you could cheat karma by being a sort of a selfish, cruel, heartless, mean, devious, a rule-breaking person all your life. But just make sure the last thought's a good one. So you're never giving any charity before, never taking the 5 precepts, cheated on your wife. But on your last thought, you get the monk around, put a donation in the box right at the very end, because you don't need the money anyway, because your children are going to inherit it. So you make a donation right at the very end, just before you die. Parnati Pata Weramani, Adi Nadana Weramani. It's too late. You can't cheat that way. Because your last thought is the sum total of what you've been thinking before. I don't know if any of you have ever come close to death. But I remember one time, it's a classical case. This is not a cliche when your last moments, your life flashes in front of you. Because when I was a student, I was walking in Scotland. I was alone. I was lost the path. I was walking along the cliffs in a very remote part of Scotland. Actually, I found out that no one came across that path for another 2 or 3 days. And I fell over a cliff. I lost my footing. I had a heavy backpack on, and I twisted around, and I was facing the cliff. And I was going down, a vertical cliff. Down, the cliff was passing me by again and again. I thought I was dead. And at that time, the major event, I was only about 19 or 20, the major events of my life all flashed past. It seemed that I was falling forever. And this is what happened. You do actually see your past life, your life events so far. I felt, because I couldn't see what was happening, I couldn't see how far down it was, but I knew it was a long, long way. And I felt something solid under my feet. So I bent my legs to take the fall. I'd only tumbled a little bit, and I stood up. No broken bones, no cuts. It was amazing. It was a miracle you could fall that far without any injury. And then I looked up. And the cliff was only just above my head. It was about 7 feet. It may sound funny, but it's true. That's what happened. Because when I was falling, I was afraid. I thought I was dying. And my whole perception started to change. Time went very slowly. What was only 7 foot felt to me like 70 feet. And those could only be in a couple of seconds. For me, it was about a whole minute or more. It's a strange experience. You may have had those experiences when you're having a car crash. Time slows down. So it's amazing what happens when you get close to death. Ordinary things actually change. And knowing that experience, actually you do go on autopilot if you have a sudden death. One of my disciples, she was very happy. She was going away from my monasteries, driving home. Her car went on the gravel side of the road. She lost control. She flipped over 3 times. When you're in a car crash like that, you don't know what the damage is. And so actually, when the car finished rolling, she told me that she recited to herself, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. Automatically. And then she realized, because there was hardly any pain, that she realized she was actually quite safe. In these modern cars, they're so safe. You know, they've got these like cell configurations where you don't get crushed. You've got your seatbelt on. So she wasn't injured at all. Her car was a write-off, but she was quite safe. But she was so happy that when she thought she was going to die, what she did was actually recite to herself, let go, let go, let go, let go. She knew that when the real thing happened, she'd probably do the same. It was a rehearsal, a dress rehearsal for a death. And she passed the rehearsal, the mock exam. You'll find that your death, if it's a sudden death, as you've been trained, your inclinations, all the things you've done in life, that's what will happen to you. It's a waste of time waiting to the last minute to swat for your final exam. I mean your real final exam. Like at university or like at school, if you haven't worked all the year, it's a waste of time coming to the monks and saying, please do some chanting because I've got my exams to be done. That's what happened some years ago. There was this, she was I'm not sure if it was Malaysian or Singaporean, a Chinese girl. She came to us monks for some chanting. She was doing her university exams, the end of year exams. She wanted some chanting to bring her good luck. So we did the chanting. She never gave any donation, just got the chanting, and we never saw her again. But we saw her friends who told us what happened. She was going around telling all her friends, the monks at my monastery, Ajahn Brahm and his monks are no good. Because you know why? She failed the exam. She failed the exam and she said, our chanting's no good. But the point was, we found out from her friends, she hardly ever went to any lectures or any tutorials. She was only at university overseas for the parties, for the social life. And she thought the exams, the monks could take care of that part of life. You can't do it. Just chanting at the very end is not good enough. It's the same when you die. You just get the monks to do the chanting for you when you haven't done going to any lectures, no good karma, no generosity, not keeping the precepts, no charity work, no compassion. If you haven't done the work, you can't just swat up at the last minute and expect to pass. So what happens? If you're a good person, you have done charity work, compassion, service, you've been a good person, a good family person, a good husband, a good wife, a good parent, a good child, then your last thought will automatically be a beautiful one. You'll be unable to think a bad thought. All that you've done in your life will come together and make that last thought a beautiful one. A sudden death and not so sudden death is the same. So that's the answer to your question. Yeah? I didn't catch the end of it. Okay, will there be the same goal if you're a Muslim, a Christian or a Buddhist or whatever? It doesn't matter what you call yourself. It matters what you do, who you are. It doesn't matter whether you're a boy or a girl, old or young, Australian, Malaysian or whatever. It's what you do which counts, not what you call yourself. Because there are some people who call themselves Buddhists, they're called Wesak Buddhists. The only time you see them in a temple is on Wesak. And there are some Christians who've never been to a temple before, but they don't know what the law of karma is, but they're so kind and generous, compassionate people. Which one do you think will go to heaven? The Christian, yeah, because they're good, they're kind. As it says in the Christian Bible, because I was brought up with Christianity, by their deeds ye shall know them. That's why it doesn't really matter just what you call yourself. It's actually what you do, your karma. If you are a kind, compassionate, good person, then you go to kind, good, compassionate places. So, this is actually our life these days, is actually modern life. If you see a good teacher, doesn't matter whether they're a Buddhist, Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana, whether a Christian, Muslim, whatever, if what they say makes sense, then follow it. No one has got the franchise on truth. The truth is out there like the air. People might try and bottle it and sell it, like people bottle water. I don't know if I should say this, I might get into trouble, but you know one of the most favourite bottled waters is called Evian water. How many of you have figured out that means naive spelt backwards? Check it out, Evian is naive spelt backwards. What are you buying? You get better water from the taps in Malaysia. So, if it's true, it must bring happiness, harmony, and peace. That's how you can know it's truth. Not just because it sounds good, but know it by its results. And if it's a monk, if it's a Buddhist, a Christian, a Muslim, or whatever, if what they say is opposed to harmony, opposed to peace, opposed to tolerance, it can't be truth. So that's how you can know for yourself. Yeah. Okay. What I'd probably do if I knew someone had got lots of bad karma, there'd been a naughty little boy or naughty girl, and they came to the monastery and said they're having an exam. And I'd say, you have to come to the chanting. Say it was like here, someone was doing an examination today, or going to an interview. And they came to me this afternoon, and they said, can we have some chanting, because I've got a very important interview for a job tomorrow morning. And I knew they'd been a bad person. I'd say, yes, come to the chanting. I'll give you the chanting at 8 o'clock. And when they came here, I'd say, oh, I'm terribly sorry. I've got to give a talk first of all. I'll give it to you afterwards. So they have to come to the talk first of all. I'd use it as a bribe, as a means to actually to let them listen to some Dhamma first of all. And that way, hopefully, that the Dhamma they listen to will actually change their life and make them into a good person. It's as if the chanting is the bait to get them into the temple to listen to some good Dhamma. So that's what I would do. I'd be deceiving, sneaky, out of compassion for them. That's why I'm